Hello, welcome to my kitchen. Today we are sitting here because I think the lighting is better. Secondarily, we're going to talk about Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. This one is going to be my spoiler-free kind of talk about this. And then I'm also going to have a thing where I talk about it in a more discussion-y manner because I have a lot of very spoiler-heavy thoughts, so I feel the need to do kind of both. So this book was a good time. It wasn't a bad time. I ended up giving it 3 stars just because it ended up having a lot of things that I felt were not poorly executed, but like clumsily executed. But like it was super engaging. I did really enjoy the world and the characters and all of the different elements of the story. I just think some parts of the plotting and some parts of the pacing didn't work out super well. For me in particular. Yes. Right off the bat, trigger warnings for this book are blood and violence, and both of those things are very graphic in this book. It is about characters who perform blood magic, and so it's got some things for like blood and violence and self-harm and things like that. So if you can't do that, don't read this book, because it's kind of the point of at least half of the characters' like interaction with magic. Yeah. So like I said, this book is about blood magic. There is a culture that uses blood magic, and there is a culture that uses holy magic from the gods. And the main character from the holy magic side is a woman who is like the only known cleric, and unlike most clerics in history, she actually can communicate with all of the gods instead of just what would normally be one. So that's interesting. The other side of it, the other perspective we get, is the prince of the blood magic kingdom, and he is a blood mage, and he's a general in this war between these two kingdoms, and he that's basically his character. And so the story is like these two characters. This cleric grew up in a monastery in the middle of the mountains, and the prince attacks that monastery and upends her whole life, and now she's on the run, and things proceed from there in terms of this. There's a war between these two cultures, and her being this cleric and having access to magic makes her very important to that war effort, so they're like training her and waiting for her to grow up and that kind of thing. But then he finds the monastery she's at, it throws everything into some upheaval, and things just move forward from there and get more complicated from there. So for the book as a whole, like I said, I gave it 3 stars because I had some problems with plotting and with pacing. I think the ending gets a little confusing, and I think that the timeline gets a little confused throughout. That being said, there were a lot of things that I did really like about this. I enjoyed the characters. I liked how opinionated and present they were in the scenes. They were very active characters, and for the most part, I didn't think they were like necessarily making stupid decisions, or if they were making decisions that were contrary to strategic position. Like, there was positives and negatives to all the decisions the characters had to make. It wasn't like, well, this is clearly the right answer and the character made the other choice for plot reasons. That didn't happen. It was very like, I thought the world was very nuanced, and that was really well done, especially. I'm very curious about what the rest of the world looks like. I think this is book 1 in a series, and I want to read the rest of it because I feel like there's so much more to the world as a whole, and I really want to get that, and I want to know that, and kind of see the nuance and the depth that we saw in the pieces of this book and the pieces of the world that we got to see in this book. I want to see that for the rest of the world. Like, I want to know. The magic was really interesting. It was really dark and really creepy, and kind of on both sides at certain points, but I did really like those elements. I did have some, I have a lot of questions about the ways that some of these things work, And about the history of the world, I did think that the main characters were really well developed and really, like I said, a lot of depth, a lot of nuanced. They felt like people, the main characters, in a lot of respects. I wanted the side characters to get a little bit more, especially at later points in the book. Some of the later characters that they meet, I wanted them to have a little bit more depth. But I thought the main ones that they did pretty well on. I thought that the romance was kind of fun. For the most part, I do think it developed a little oddly. I didn't, like, love it. I didn't have a lot of, like, serious issues with it either, though, until I think kind of the ending, and that was, like I said, I think the ending got really confusing, but yeah, and so, like, the character relationships and what the ending does to them, like, I think that's something that's going to be explored in later books, but I felt like this one, things got weird at the end. I do think the writing was pretty good. I was engaged throughout. I enjoyed the process of reading it, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, so positive on the characters, positive on the world building, iffy on the writing is kind of how I feel about this one. And again, I want to see where it goes a little bit. Yeah, so I think that's going to be my spoiler-free review. If you want, or if you read the book and want to know the rest of my feelings, because spoilers, I have thoughts. You can check out the spoilery discussion video that I'm also going to post. I'll try to figure out how to link to it somewhere. I kind of know what I'm doing. Alright, bye.